I'll tell you my background in a moment, but I spent many years as an organic farmer. And back in the day, when the organic farming movement began, before I began, luckily I'm not that old, there was a great degree of passion around a set of values. Okay, and these values were truly the values of sustainability. And I outline these values in my book. And of course, they have everything to do with, yes, organic in the sense of non-toxic, we're not using chemicals, and it's local. But there's a lot else that was part of the movement too, that now organic farms follow it all. So I know a number of farmers who actually have given up their organic certification because they don't feel that the movement supports the values it once did. And I also know farmers who don't have a certification because they simply can't afford it, who actually follow the values impeccably, that I would support any day. Okay? So it's really about us being willing to move from being passive consumers who just rely on labels, we can't do that anymore at all, to really investigating and bringing a joyful curiosity to that investigation. I want to know more about the interconnection of things. I want to know more about all the choices I'm making, so I can make a choice that, well, for me personally, feeds my heart, creates the world I want to live in. So I want to tell you a little bit about my background and then continue to see what's most going to serve you today. There's a lot on this topic we can discuss. But I grew up in Los Angeles and of course attended Marlborough, and I felt just at a young age passionate about these issues, and that back then, that was 1991, I simply didn't see them being addressed here in the context of Los Angeles. And I really, truly wanted to go find the teachers and the leaders who were doing something about the issues, okay, who were active and engaged and working on solutions. And so I left Los Angeles, and it's interesting, I left LA for about 17 years. I ended up here recently. At that time, I was a bit of a self-righteous teenager, and I vowed to never live in LA again. But here we go. And one of the first things that I did was to learn how to grow my own food. I wanted to simply move from being a city dweller to how do you actually connect to nature, to the natural world. And as we know, because we have gardens here, amazing things, there's so much that we learn simply from engaging in the natural world that we can't learn from all of our book knowledge. Okay? And I became very active in green architecture and sustainable agriculture, and was an activist for many years. But I traveled around the world during that time and got to work with some phenomenal teachers and leaders, and I was very lucky in that. And I had a couple of experiences then that shifted my perspective that I'll share. But one of the things that also shifted my perspective back then was that as an environmental activist at that time, I thought there was a missing piece. There were a lot of people doing phenomenal work out there in the world for helping these problems, okay, or serving the world, but that it was in a context of stress, burnout, okay, competition. People relate to some of these issues. There were things that didn't seem to me that they actually fit in a sustainable world. The sustainable future I wanted to see didn't necessarily involve that kind of day-to-day living, right? And I lived in a number of intentional communities as well, communities where people were intentionally living off the grid. And do people know the term permaculture design? Okay, so I'm also a teacher of permaculture design. It's a way that we approach designing our landscapes and our farms and our cities, whatever scale, but looking at how to design in the way nature designs, okay? But in these places, the human element was what was most fascinating to me. It was missing. We didn't know how to work with ourselves in kindness and really work with each other in kindness. If we don't know that, it's not something a lot of us were actually trained in, okay? I mean, do people know what I'm pointing at with that? A lot of people accept living in a very stressful, sort of competitive world. People relate? So if we don't actually know how to do it in here, and we're not fully present and living in present moment awareness, we're not truly going to be able to change the situation out there, okay? If you can't solve the problem with the same mind that created it, Albert Einstein quote. And so for me, when I was in my mid-20s, I met a Zen teacher named Sherry Huber, and she ran a Zen monastery. I didn't know I was about to do this, and I shocked my world, but I became a Buddhist monk for the next 7 years. And what we developed there was a Center for Peace and Sustainability that merged physical sustainability, so planetary sustainability, with how we are living in ourselves and with one another. Okay, and it completely blew my mind and set the stage for what I was to do next. And what I teach now is personal sustainability and global sustainability, and how they're based on the same principles. We practice them inside and we practice them outside. Does that make sense to people? So most of us live in a world, we grew up in a city, where you were just taught, flip the switch and there's all the electricity that you want, turn on the tap and there's all the water that you want, right? Food comes from the market. You can get any kind of food you want in the world within a 5-mile radius, right? And so it's only within the past 60 to 75 years that we've actually been living this quality of life. How recent is that? Isn't that striking? And so I just want people to sort of receive that information for a moment. Consider that. We're just doing things that we've been taught. It's a really recent period of time that we've sort of gotten off track. And what we're looking at now is the possibility of merging all of the benefits we have with the modern world with the principles of sustainability, so that we can come back to something that takes care of both ourselves and the planet. Okay? Now bring your pen to the page, and I'm just going to ask you a couple of open-ended questions. And I'm going to thank you for writing quickly, and just ask if anyone would be willing to share what you noticed, or if there's anything you noticed that was interesting to you, striking. Yes?
Well, one thing that I noticed in your earlier mindfulness exercise, and then also right now one of the items that I wrote down, is composting. A relatively new thing for our valley is a larger scale composting, and with that came this whole mindfulness of trash for me.
Yes.
And so I find now that on trash day, I'll have a tiny little bag in the trash can, and I feel like, I want to put a sticker on our board or something. It's really great. I mean, even in all the trash cans, whether it's recyclable or not, we really cut down on that.
Congratulations. Anyone else want to raise your hand if trash is an area that you're making an impact? Yeah.
Same thing. I've just been blown away that this family now is like a one little trash can.
Yes.
And we started raising chickens this year also.
Congratulations.
And it's just this amazing journey.
Yeah, so these are all things about shifting how we've been taught to live, which is as passive consumers, very disengaged from our world, and how empowering and fun it is when we make that shift. Trash is something I'll talk about just for a moment, because I'm very passionate about zero waste. And when I first moved back to LA after being a monk, I noticed that in the first week of living there was a little more trash created by me than I would create in 6 months of being a monk. And so I said, oh no. So I just turned it into a little game. For a month, I am allowed to create no trash, except for toilet paper, okay? And that month was all the training I needed in how you live in a city and create zero waste. And I outline it in my book, okay? You create a closed cycle in your house. People know the notion of a closed cycle on your property. And it's very fun and empowering. Composting is one piece of it, yeah? But just to consider that in nature, there is no such thing as waste. It doesn't exist. If we went out to a forest and took a walk together, we would see that the leaves fall from a tree, they become carbon for the soil, they feed the mycelia beneath the soil. A tree falls in a forest and it becomes shelter for an animal immediately. There's no waste, and all of nature does that. So earlier we were talking about sustainable organic farms versus organic farms. A sustainable organic farm, for instance, will practice some form of closed cycle and zero waste. There are a million fun ways in agriculture to do that. A regular organic farm might have a label organic, but they might have not be practicing this at all. Okay? So I just wanted, that's a very fun topic to bring up. Yeah, thank you. Who else? What did you notice?
Yeah. There's that a lot of things on my list for things I wish I could wrong are things that I can't necessarily control within my family. So like I try to turn off all the lights in my house and unplug appliances and things that I don't have as much control over, like how my parents get food. So we shop a lot of like Trader Joe's, but like for big like shopping expenditures, we go to like a regular grocery store, and even like in the organic section of the grocery store, like my parents tend to like just buy regular produce sometimes just because it's convenient. So like I need help like changing like their attitudes kind of, because with what I've grown up with, I mean, I'm more open to changing, but I obviously don't have control over.
Yeah, you're changing what you can, but you're in a context where you can't control all the personal decisions, unfortunately, as much as you'd like to. Yeah. So a couple things that are interesting about that. A lot of people are in that situation, even if it's a family, a husband and wife. She really wants to be green, he's not so into it. Okay. There's a lot of people in that situation. So I would recommend, number one, keeping an acknowledgments list for yourself. This actually be fun for everyone. Of all the steps you are taking, okay, the whole neighborhood might not know about your zero waste, but every step that we're taking is a courageous and significant step in this point in time. Because collectively, we're all making a change that we've needed to make for many years and have just had our eyes closed to, okay? So to keep a list, really acknowledging all the little steps you are doing, it's a way of giving back to ourselves and really empowering yourself that even though you can't control what you want to right now, you know, you can also take on the project. If that's your challenge, that's also your opportunity. So you can also take on that project of, given I live in a world where I want to live more consciously and a lot of people don't, how can I use this as an opportunity to see how to be skillful, okay, as a nurse steward amidst people who aren't? You know what I'm pointing at that? So it means seeing when it makes me self-righteous or angry, right? Noticing what other responses I can have, seeing when it requires great patience and when there's opportunities for helpful education, okay? Like that. And I'd love to talk about that topic more because I think it's a really important one, but we're short on time. So, yeah. When I was in my early 20s, I had the opportunity to spend time in India with an activist. She's a very, encourage everyone to look into Brandon Shiva, also Wendell Berry, if you're interested in the sustainable food revolution. And we spent time in a village in northern India, I'll do this very briefly, where we were part of a seed savers exchange. It was my first experience in the seed savers exchange. And in India, in that part of India, there had traditionally been 5,000 varieties of simply rice seed. And because of the Green Revolution, you know what the Green Revolution was? Very briefly, when Westerners came into countries like India to help them, and instead of basically help them by giving them hybrid seeds and saying, this is going to help you, you'll buy them from us every year, but they don't reproduce and they do require pesticides. So suddenly we were impacting countries that didn't have conventional farming practices. That was the bell, right? Yes. Okay, such a gentle bell. I feel like I don't have time for this story, but essentially they had gotten down from 5,000 varieties of rice seed to 1,500. And in all of India, they went from 800,000 varieties of seed to 200,000, okay, in just a dozen or so years. So the seed-saving movement is now replenishing that. That's our biodiversity. And what I got to see for myself in that moment experientially was this rice was being grown in this village and then sent off to the U.S. for sale. So when I go into Trader Joe's, okay, if that's where you're shopping, and I see the rice from India for sale, or I have the opportunity to buy more locally grown bulk rice, I can feel the significance in just that choice, because I don't want to participate in what's happening in this village. People with me?
Yeah.
Okay, it's a short story, but I feel it's important. It changed my life to be there. Okay? Thank you so much for coming.